Hey, how you guys doing out there? Namaste. This is me, Purple Lotus, coming to you guys from my home on the big island of Hawaii. Wanted to make this quick video to raise some awareness about child labor practices and railway children in India. I have a great passion for India. Recently visited the country about 4 months ago. Went on a tour, went on several tours through several different states, covered about 650 miles by car and about 1,000 miles by plane, flying all the way from New Delhi to Kolkata and stopping a lot of places in between, Jaipur, Agra, Mathura, lots of different places in between, lots of different little cities. Also visited a sponsored child that my wife and I have been sponsoring for a couple of years. We now currently have 2 sponsored children, one in Kolkata, one in New Delhi. It's a life-changing experience, and I fell in love with the culture, fell in love with the people, and it's been a life-changing experience for me, and it made me reflect on our vastly different lifestyle that we have here in America, in the Western world. So I wanted to raise a little bit of awareness and a little bit of research. This has been on my heart for a while. This subject regarding child labor practices and railway children living on platforms in India. Well, in India, there are 13 million children on the streets of India alone. Every 5 minutes, a child arrives on a platform somewhere at a railway station in India. India has one of the busiest railway stations in the world. I think it's besides the United Kingdom. Between June 16 and May 2017, 1,628 children rescued, 134 girls and youngest of age 4, which is about a small percent of how many actually arrive on platforms and go missing. It's about less than 3%. It is the second most populated country in the world behind China, and projected by the year 2022, in about 5 years, to surpass China. There is currently 1.4 billion people residing in India. And to give you a little bit of perspective, it's 1/3 the size of the US, but yet 4 times more populated. So if you can kind of download that in your brain, 1/3 the size and 4 times more populated than the United States. There are 445 million children under the age of 18 on the streets. Not necessarily on the streets, in the country. That equals about 37% of the population. There is 33 million working children between the ages of 5 and 18 years old. Every 8 minutes, a child goes missing, abduction being the largest crime against children. And it is a very, very small percentage of these children that are ever recovered, due to the West Bengal state being bordering close to a lot of different countries like Bangladesh and Nepal, different places like that. I think West Bengal being about 300 to 400 miles away from the Bangladesh border. 11 million child laborers between the ages of 5 and 14. 11 million child laborers between the ages of 5 and 14. 2 million children die before their first birthday due to malnutrition, lack of immunizations, and just the total lack of care due to the overwhelming response. A lot of these families have a lot of children. Birth control is not very rampant. Government doesn't put too many regulations on birth control, obviously, by it being the second most populated country in the world. 104 million children between ages of 6 to 14 years old are outside of the school system, and a lot of them are too far behind in their education to even enroll in school, neither have the resources or funding by the government or within their personal family to afford basic necessities for school, such as backpacks, tablets, pencils, basic things that we, the United States, make sure that we always get for our children before the start of every school year. 18 million children living on platforms in India. Like I said earlier, every 5 minutes a child arrives on a platform alone in hopes of finding income, getting some kind of work to bring back to their family, and they're often lured into child labor schemes, lied to, and are abducted, and within the first 20 minutes are abducted by a sexual predator or someone that is sent by these syndicate crime organizations to be forced into child labor or into the sex trade. There are 2.5 million people in 4,000 plus slums in Kolkata alone. We traveled to Kolkata when we visited our sponsored child. Went to a lot of different places in Kolkata. I think the population is over 15 million people. So we only navigated a very, very small percentage of Calcutta and saw a lot of poverty in its worst way. A lot of street children, a lot of street families, a lot of children working early in the mornings on the street corners, peeling sugar cane, selling tea, selling basic trinkets at the night market, everywhere you go, begging. We didn't get a chance to go to too many slums. We're working on trying to get some volunteer work in a couple different foundations next year on our trip back to India to try and help out in some kind of way to these slums. Howrah Railway has 900,000 passengers per day with 54,000 children under 18 living on these platforms. I think Howrah is one of the busiest platforms, railway stations in the world. Besides one in London, which I don't remember the name. Just to give you a little bit more perspective. So 54,000 children living on these platforms, and a lot of them live there alone from very young ages, and up from 1 year up to, I've read stories from upwards of 15 years living on these platforms alone. Sealdah has 750 trains per day with up to 2 million passengers daily, and is also one of the busiest railway stations in the world, and a hub for sexual predators, child laborers, human traffickers that prey on innocent children, desperate women, young girls, young boys that are often misled, like I mentioned earlier. Many as young as 5 turn into solvent abuse, such as using dentrite, which is an acetone-based solvent that is easily obtained, that you can buy it between 3 to 5 rupees, which is probably pennies on the dollar, that they use to escape this everyday life of poverty and hunger and the constant memories of being sexually abused. A lot of them fight off attackers, have seen their family members get beaten, murdered, abducted, raped, and as young as 5 years old, heavily addicted to these different types of solvents, also using the older one, being a gateway drug, turning into more opioid and heroin addiction. A lot of them losing limbs, being amputated from knees, hands, elbows, feet, from railway accidents, from being high on solvents, and also catching infections from these solvents, and often dying from infection of not getting the proper immunizations to treat these infections caused by the solvent abuse. Many runaways in hopes of finding work, earning steady income, but are often misled and lured into prostitution and child labor schemes, and is okay a lot of the times by the family members as long as the income is generated, as long as the family is getting some sort of income to provide basic necessities such as food and basic living expenses, food, maybe hygiene products, money for transportation or other things like that. These are often turned a blind eye and ignored. And keep in mind that these prostitution and labor schemes are targeting very young children from the ages of 5 to 14 years old, or even in some cases a little younger, in some cases a little older. Many children are often beaten by police, which here, the United States and many parts of the world, we seek police as a part of refuge for safety. We look at the police for safety. They're often beaten by police, and in some cases abducted by police and sold off by government officials and police themselves, that make money off of finding and targeting these children at these platforms and railway stations into these different types of labor trades. Many young girls and some boys are sent to Sonagachi, which is the largest red light district in Southeast Asia, with multi-level brothels and with an estimated 11,000 sex trade workers that are abducted and smuggled and sent off to work in these trades and are repeatedly beaten, deprived, and starved, and mentally, physically, spiritually broken down, and are treated inhumanely for money, to be exploited sexually by predators and often tourists. Many families often live at the railway platforms for many years, from 1 to 15, like I mentioned earlier, sleeping between tracks and on parked cars and on the notorious 4A platform in Selda, which is a hub for sexual predators, drunkards who often beat and abduct children and women, which happens daily. It's more than daily. It happens by the minute. It's going to happen by the minute. Like I mentioned earlier, getting into railway accidents, seeing their family members get murdered, being sexually abused and beaten and exploited and taken advantage of. These families often can make a maximum income of 1 to 200 rupees per day, which is about $2 to $3, $1.50 to $3 American money, by washing dishes at roadside stands and selling plastic bottles left behind on trains and certain amounts of trash that they can find that some vendors will buy. And in high cases, they are often robbed of this money that they earn and are forced to even do other things for money, or are left no choice but to be exploited for money. I've never thought of these atrocious things that go on, because these would never happen in the United States, because our country is more structured, our government has been more established. India's independence was just been over about 60 years. They had a caste system for many of years, and it was a male-dominated country. A lot of it has been changing. A lot of Western influences have been happening in India, and it's slowly changing. But I wanted to bring awareness, because this is very important, how you can help by sending to foundations, maybe becoming a sponsor to a child, a sponsor to a family, or maybe even donating, or even if you can't donate, you can try and just go on these websites, try to research, try to give. Not only in India, there's a lot of different foundations all over the world, like in the chocolate industry, in the Ivory Coast in Africa, how child labor affects that kind of trade. There's a documentary on YouTube called The Dark Side of Chocolate that you can read. There's also one called Born in Brothels, about young boys and girls in Kolkata born into brothels and sold off, and it's kind of relevant to what I'm talking about now. It's a very beautiful country with beautiful people, great architecture, a great culture, great food, very interesting. My wife and I love the culture in the country, and it has a very special place in our hearts. And I wanted to bring awareness to those who want to watch this video. There's several different agencies and places that I've read about and am involved with. My wife and I are involved with personally. Um, One of them are railwaychildren.org. You can go on. They help with children with street-level child-friendly stations that provide mentoring and a safe environment for these children while working on long-term placement, either trying to place them in government-run safe houses or returning to their parents, setting up some kind of plan, getting the parents educated, getting them immunized, things like that, getting them an education. So that was railwaychildren.org you can look up into. There is one called Grace Children's Ministry, which is located in Andhra Pradesh, which is on the southeastern coast of India. They're helping with widows, victims of child labor, and rescued railway children, providing them with shelter, nutrition, education, medical, recreation, life skills, counseling, etc. Housing them, teaching them trades, building them back up into confidence to become contributing citizens into their own country, into their own society. It is founded by a great man that I've been corresponding with. His name is Praveen Kumar. You can go on Grace Children's Ministries website. You can Google that, search that to find out how you can get involved. Read about what he's about, how they were founded, and what's his mission. Also, Children International. That is a child sponsorship program all over the world, particularly in Delhi and Kolkata, in India. And you can join for pennies on the dollar per month. And these monies, my wife and I saw firsthand when we visited with their agency, and we were taking around in their village in a very rural place in I think it's Medini Manipur, or close to that effect, far off of the city in Kolkata, where they have these community centers where show us where some of the funding sponsorship money goes that helps them have basic necessities, like I mentioned earlier: education, medical, fresh drinking water, just basic necessities for their home, life skills, computer classes, literature, art, drawing, things like that. That was Children International. And there's also another one that I've been looking into in Kolkata. It's called Hope Foundation. It is founded by an Irish group. It's been around, I think they were helping since 1999. They may have been around a little bit longer. And that is on hopechild.org. And they provide all these necessities for slum children in all these 4,000 plus slums in Kolkata. And that is Hope Foundation and hopechild.org. And they provide these same things like I mentioned earlier, with the medical, health, recreation, life skills, counseling, shelter, nutrition, teaching them life skills, teaching the women sewing classes, men with carpentry skills, cooking, learning driving skills so they can become drivers, as India has, like in New Delhi alone, up to 5 million cars on the road on a daily basis, in a population of upwards of over 15 to 18 million people. It's a lot to digest. I hope you liked my video. I hope I educated you a little bit. Like I said earlier, I love the country of India. I love the people, and these things are unheard of, and makes me very sad how these things, these kind of crimes and these predators exploit these innocent children with no hope. As us in America, we are sheltered, we are free, we can go about doing our own thing. We have lots more opportunities that we can take advantage of. Our school system, we have public schools, we have bus school systems, we have even welfare assistance that pretty much everybody can get access to. We have equal opportunity. We have veterans pay. We have a lot of thousands of different philanthropists and organizations in the United States alone, that a lot of these people in India and all these impoverished countries cannot even dream or fathom what we have in our country and what we are accessible to and the opportunities that we have. And sometimes we need to put aside our, not selfishness, but our luxuries that we have, and focus on these people who live, so to speak, dead-end lives. They have no opportunity, a lot of them, and what they strive and what they earn is just for them to get by every day, which is often not enough to get by every day. They are on survival for generations and generations, and by us lending pennies on the dollar or getting involved financially or even making a trek over to this country or maybe a country of your choice to help out, you can make a very big difference in the minds and the hearts of these families or these children. You can like my page, and I'm also working on a website and working on maybe some GoFundMe accounts to accept donations and to provide proof of receipts that distribute to some of these organizations on a future basis. So you can check me out on this channel, Purple Lotus. Leave me a comment, like my page, give me some input. I appreciate this last few minutes of your time. Namaste. Till next time.